Story 1. The Elevator of Death, the Elisa Lam Mystery. On February 19, 2013, maintenance worker Santiago Lopez climbed the rusty ladder to the rooftop of the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, unaware that he was about to discover one of the most disturbing and puzzling mysteries in modern criminal history. What he found floating in the hotel's water tank would not only shock the world, but also spawn countless theories, documentaries, and sleepless nights for anyone who dared to dig deeper into the case. The Cecil Hotel, built in 1924, had always been a magnet for tragedy and darkness. Located in the heart of Skid Row, the hotel had witnessed more than its fair share of suicides, murders, and unexplained deaths over the decades. Serial killers like Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, had once called this place home. But nothing in the hotel's grim history could have prepared the staff for what was about to unfold. 21-year-old Elisa Lam had checked into the Cecil Hotel on January 26, 2013, as part of what was supposed to be her dream solo trip along the California coast. A bright and ambitious student from the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Elisa was known for her infectious personality and her popular Tumblr blog called Etherfields, where she shared her thoughts on fashion, philosophy, and life in general. Her followers adored her wit and creativity, completely unaware of the mental health struggles she battled behind her cheerful online persona. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, conditions she managed with prescribed medication. Her parents, David and Yina Lam, were supportive and loving, maintaining daily contact with their daughter throughout her travels. But as January turned into February, those daily check-ins suddenly stopped, leaving her family frantically worried. The last confirmed sighting of Elisa was captured by the hotel's security cameras on February 1, 2013. The footage, which would later become one of the most analyzed pieces of evidence in true crime history, showed Elisa entering and exiting an elevator in what appeared to be a state of extreme distress. In the haunting 4-minute video, she could be seen pressing multiple buttons frantically, peering nervously around corners, and making strange hand gestures as if she were hiding from someone or something just outside the frame. Story 2. The Betrayal in Room 237, a trust shattered forever. The clock read 9:47 p.m. when Sarah Morrison heard the first sound downstairs. She had been soaking in her bathtub for nearly 30 minutes, trying to wash away the stress of another demanding day at the marketing firm where she had worked for the past 7 years. Her 2 young sons, 8-year-old Michael and 5-year-old David, were fast asleep in their beds, and her husband James wouldn't be home from his business trip until the following evening. It was supposed to be a quiet night in their suburban Dallas home. Sarah had always prided herself on being cautious. She double-checked locks, installed security systems, and never opened the door to strangers. But on this particular evening in March 2023, all her precautions would prove insufficient against a threat she never saw coming, a betrayal so deep it would shatter her faith in humanity forever. The sound came again, louder this time, a distinct crash from somewhere near the kitchen. Sarah sat up in the warm water, her heart already beginning to race. "James?" she called out hopefully, knowing full well that her husband was 3 states away on business. The house responded with an eerie silence that made her skin crawl. Sarah had grown up in this neighborhood. She knew every sound the old house made, from the creaky floorboard in the hallway to the way the wind rattled the back door. This was different. This was the sound of someone moving through her home with purpose. She tried to rationalize the noise. Maybe their golden retriever, Cooper, had knocked something over. Perhaps a raccoon had gotten into the garbage again. But as she strained to listen, she heard something that made her blood run cold, the unmistakable sound of footsteps on her hardwood floors, deliberate and careful, as if someone was trying to move quietly through her house. Panic began to set in as Sarah realized she was completely vulnerable. Her phone was charging in the bedroom down the hall. James was unreachable. The nearest neighbor was Mrs. Patterson, an elderly widow who went to bed early and probably couldn't hear much anyway. Sarah was alone with her sleeping children, and someone was in her house. The bathroom door suddenly exploded inward with a tremendous crash that sent splinters of wood flying across the tile floor. 2 figures burst through the destroyed doorway, their presence immediately filling the small room with menace and terror. The first intruder was a massive man, easily 6'4" and weighing close to 300 pounds. His face was covered by a dirty ski mask, but his eyes were visible, cold, calculating, and filled with a sadistic gleam that made Sarah's blood freeze. The second intruder was smaller, but no less terrifying. He wore a black hooded sweatshirt with the hood pulled up, sunglasses despite the late hour, and a bandana covering the lower half of his face. In his gloved hand, he held a chrome pistol pointed directly at Sarah's head. Unlike his partner, this man was eerily calm, standing motionless in the corner like a statue, watching her every move with predatory patience. "Please," Sarah whispered, instinctively covering herself with her arms while trying to sink deeper into the bathwater. "Please don't hurt my children. Take whatever you want. Just don't hurt my babies." The larger intruder stepped closer, his boots crunching on the broken door fragments. "Shut up," he growled, his voice rough and gravelly. "Where's your phone? Where do you keep your jewelry? And don't even think about lying to me, lady, because I can smell bullshit from a mile away." Sarah's voice shook as she tried to comply. "My phone is in the bedroom on the nightstand. There's some jewelry in the small box on my dresser, but it's not expensive. There's maybe $300 in cash in my purse downstairs." The silent intruder in the corner tilted his head slightly, and Sarah could swear she heard him let out a low chuckle. The sound was muffled by his mask, but there was something sickeningly familiar about it that she couldn't quite place. Her mind raced, trying to identify what seemed so recognizable about this stranger's mannerisms. $300? The larger man's voice rose to an angry shout. "You live in this fancy house and you expect me to believe you only have $300? Lady, if you're lying to me, I'm going to make you watch while I break every bone in your kids' bodies, and I mean every single bone, starting with their tiny little fingers." The threat against her children sent Sarah into a panic so intense she could barely breathe. "I swear to God, that's all the cash I have in the house. Please, I'm telling you the truth. You can check my bank account on my phone if you want. I can give you my PIN number. Just please, please don't touch my children." The larger man grabbed her phone from the bedroom and began scrolling through it, looking for banking apps and anything valuable. Meanwhile, the silent intruder remained perfectly still, his gun trained on Sarah, his head tilted in that unnervingly familiar way. There was something about his posture, the way he held his shoulders, that nagged at Sarah's memory, but terror was making it impossible to think clearly. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The masked figure didn't respond, but Sarah could swear she saw his head nod slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if you were answering a different question entirely. The sound of breaking glass from downstairs told Sarah that the intruders were preparing to leave. She knew this might be her only chance to escape, to get help for her children. Without thinking, she lunged from the bathtub, grabbed her robe, and ran for the hallway. She could hear the intruders shouting behind her as she sprinted toward her children's rooms, but instead of trying to grab the boys, she made a split-second decision to run outside and get help first. The children would be safer locked in their rooms than being carried by their naked, panicked mother through a house with armed criminals. Sarah burst through her front door and into the cold night air, screaming for help at the top of her lungs. Her neighbor's porch light came on, and she could see Mrs. Patterson peering through her window. Sarah ran to her car, remembering that James could access their security system remotely through his phone. Fighting through her panic, Sarah managed to activate the home security cameras and intercom system through the app on her iPad, which she always kept in her car for work. Within minutes, she was able to contact James, who immediately called 911 while staying on the line to coordinate with the responding officers. The police arrived within 8 minutes, but the intruders had vanished. Sarah's children were found unharmed, still sleeping in their locked bedrooms, completely unaware of the nightmare that had unfolded just rooms away from them. The initial investigation seemed straightforward. a home invasion gone wrong when the victim escaped before the crime could be completed. But as detectives dug deeper, disturbing patterns began to emerge. The intruders had known too much about Sarah's family routine. They knew James was away on business. They knew which nights Sarah typically worked late and which nights she came home early. 3 days after the break-in, Detective Maria Rodriguez made a discovery that would turn the entire case upside down. Philip Hendricks, Sarah's closest friend and business partner for over 6 years, had not shown up to work since the night of the attack. When police went to check on him at his apartment, they found it completely abandoned. Philip had been more than just Sarah's business partner. He had been her confidant, her children's honorary uncle, and someone she trusted implicitly. He knew every detail of her family schedule. He knew about James's business trips. He had a key to their house for emergencies. And most disturbing of all, he had been harboring an obsessive romantic fixation on Sarah that she had never suspected. The investigation of Philip's abandoned apartment revealed a shrine to Sarah in his bedroom, hundreds of photographs taken without her knowledge, printouts of her social media posts, and detailed journals documenting her daily routines. Hidden in his closet, investigators found the hooded sweatshirt and sunglasses that the second intruder had worn, along with rope, duct tape, and chloroform. But the most horrifying discovery was Philip's collaboration with Marcus "Tank" Williams, a career criminal with an extensive record of violent home invasions and sexual assault. Text message. The autumn of 2019 was supposed to be the beginning of everything for 18-year-old Madison Claire Thompson. She had just started her freshman year at Texas State University in San Marcos, majoring in journalism with dreams of becoming an investigative reporter. Madison was brilliant, ambitious, and possessed the kind of infectious personality that drew people to her like a magnet. She had already made dozens of friends on campus, joined the university newspaper, and was thriving in her new independence. But on the night of October 12th, 2019, Madison's bright future would be brutally cut short by a predator who had been hunting for the perfect victim. Madison grew up in the small town of Fredericksburg, Texas, where everyone knew her family. Her parents, Robert and Susan Thompson, owned a local bakery that had been serving the community for over 20 years. Madison was their only child, and they had worked tirelessly to save money for her college education. She had been an honor student throughout high school, captain of the debate team, and volunteer at the local animal shelter. To everyone who knew her, Madison represented everything good about small-town values combined with big city ambitions. The night that changed everything started like so many other college nights. Madison's dormitory floor was hosting a study break party in the common area, complete with pizza, music, and the kind of carefree atmosphere that defines the university experience. Madison had been working on a particularly challenging assignment for her investigative journalism class, and her roommate Emma convinced her to take a break and socialize with their floor mates. Madison was responsible with alcohol, having been raised by parents who emphasized moderation and good judgment. She had 2 beers over the course of 3 hours, hardly enough to significantly impair someone of her size and tolerance. But what Madison didn't know was that someone at that party had been watching her, studying her habits, and waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Around 11:30 p.m., Madison decided to head back to her room. Her dormitory, Henderson Hall, was only a 5-minute walk from the common area where the party was being held. It was a route she had walked dozens of times before, a well-lit path through the heart of campus that she considered completely safe. Madison said goodbye to her friends, grabbed her backpack, and headed out into the cool October night. Security footage from the dormitory's entrance showed Madison leaving at 11:34 p.m. She was walking normally, checking her phone, and appeared completely alert and in control of her faculties. This footage would later become crucial evidence in disproving claims that Madison had been too intoxicated to make rational decisions. What happened next was captured by multiple security cameras across campus, creating a timeline that would haunt investigators and Madison's family forever. At 11:38 p.m., cameras near the campus library showed Madison walking along her usual route when she was approached by a man who appeared to engage her in conversation. The man was later identified as Derek Allen Morrison, a 34-year-old drifter with an extensive criminal history who had been living in San Marcos for several weeks, despite having no connection to the university. Derek was tall and initially appeared clean-cut, with the kind of superficial charm that allowed him to blend into various environments without attracting suspicion. Campus security footage showed Derek walking alongside Madison, appearing to have a friendly conversation with her. At first glance, it looked like a chance encounter between two people who might have known each other. But investigators would later discover that this was no random meeting. Derek had been stalking Madison for weeks, learning her schedule and waiting for the perfect opportunity to approach her when she was alone. At 11:42 p.m., cameras near the campus parking garage captured the moment that would seal Madison's fate. Derek was seen gesturing toward a dark-colored SUV, appearing to offer Madison a ride. For nearly 30 seconds, the footage shows what appears to be a polite conversation, with Madison shaking her head and pointing toward her dormitory. The next sequence of events happened so quickly that campus security cameras almost missed it. Derek suddenly grabbed Madison's arm, and what had appeared to be a friendly conversation instantly turned violent. Madison could be seen pulling away, clearly trying to escape, but Derek was significantly larger and stronger. Within seconds, he had forced her into his vehicle. The last clear image of Madison alive was captured at 11:43 p.m. by a camera near the campus exit. Derek's SUV could be seen leaving the university grounds with Madison inside, beginning a journey that would end in unspeakable horror just hours later. When Madison failed to return to her dorm room that night, her roommate Emma initially assumed she had decided to spend the night with friends or had gone to the library to continue studying. It wasn't until Madison missed her 9 a.m. journalism class, something she had never done before, that Emma began to worry. Emma tried calling Madison's phone repeatedly, but every call went straight to voicemail. She contacted their mutual friends, but no one had seen or heard from Madison since the party the night before. By noon, Emma was convinced something was seriously wrong and contacted campus security. The university's response was swift and comprehensive. Campus police immediately began reviewing security footage and interviewing everyone who had been at the party. By 2 p.m., they had identified the suspicious interaction between Madison and the unknown man, and by 4 p.m., they had circulated Derek's image to local law enforcement agencies. Madison's parents received the call every parent dreads at 3:17 p.m. on October 13th. Campus police informed them that their daughter was missing and that they believed she might have been abducted. Robert and Susan Thompson immediately drove to San Marcos, arriving on campus as the investigation was intensifying. The search for Madison became a community effort that encompassed not just the university but the entire surrounding area. Hundreds of volunteers joined law enforcement in searching parks, wooded areas, and abandoned buildings. Madison's photograph was distributed to every business in town, and local media outlets ran constant updates on the case. Meanwhile, investigators were working around the clock to identify Derek Morrison. His image from the security footage was run through facial recognition databases, and within 18 hours, they had a positive identification. Derek's criminal history painted a picture of a dangerous predator who had been escalating his crimes for years. Derek's record included charges for stalking, sexual assault, breaking and entering, and aggravated assault. He had been released from prison just 6 months earlier after serving 3 years for sexual assault, and he was supposed to be registered as a sex offender in his home state of Oklahoma. Instead, he had violated his parole and disappeared, eventually making his way to Texas, where he had been living under false identities. The breakthrough in the case came 36 hours after Madison's disappearance. A hiker in the Guadalupe River State Park, approximately 45 miles from the university, discovered what appeared to be human remains in a heavily wooded area near the river. The location was remote and would have been nearly impossible to find without local knowledge, suggesting that Derek had either scouted the area in advance or had used it for previous crimes. The remains were quickly identified as Madison Thompson through dental records. The coroner's examination revealed that Madison had been sexually assaulted and strangled. The brutality of the crime shocked even experienced investigators, and the evidence suggested that Madison had fought desperately for her life before being murdered. Derek Morrison was arrested at a motel in Austin, approximately 30 miles from where Madison's body was discovered. When police surrounded his room, he was found with Madison's phone, jewelry, and student identification card. His vehicle contained forensic evidence linking him to the crime scene, including Madison's DNA and fibers from her clothing. During his interrogation, Derek showed absolutely no remorse for his actions. He admitted to stalking Madison for weeks before the abduction, describing in disturbing detail how he had learned her schedule and planned the perfect moment to approach her. He had specifically chosen Madison because she fit his preferred victim profile: young, petite, and someone who appeared to be responsible and unlikely to be immediately missed. Derek revealed that he had committed similar crimes in other states, information that led to investigations in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Authorities suspected he might have been responsible for as many as 6 other abductions and murders over the past decade, making him one of the most prolific serial killers to operate across the South in recent years. The trial of Derek Morrison lasted 3 weeks and drew national media attention. The evidence against him was overwhelming.